The honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Education. During debates on Bill 72, the Minister assured us that his government is completely committed to inclusion. We've all been hoping to see evidence of that. An inclusive thing to do, and I would say a basic thing to do when preparing to respond to a report on inclusive education, would be to meet with the representatives of the 4,000 educational assistants, teaching assistants, community outreach workers who are on the front lines of inclusion in our classrooms. But sadly, we learned yesterday that the minister cancelled his meeting with CUPE representatives at the very last minute. Does the minister think that the implementation of the inclusion report can be valid or successful without the participation and expertise of educational assistants, community outreach workers, and teaching assistants?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In fact, that meeting was scheduled weeks in advance of the release of the Inclusion Commission. It wasn't about the report on inclusive education. That was not part of the agenda that was submitted to the department. We have indicated to all of those union leaders that we will follow up and reschedule that meeting. There was a scheduling conflict. But when it comes to actually meeting with those frontline workers, Mr. Speaker, we're actually going to be getting out on the road and meeting with them directly in each and every region of this province to talk about this report and its impacts positively that's going to have on the lives of our teachers and, more importantly, our students.
The honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Mr. Speaker, the meeting was scheduled for March 20th, and if it wasn't on the agenda to talk about inclusion, it should have been. When justifying the Glaze recommendations, at first the government said they would create cost savings. When they had to admit that there weren't a lot of savings, they said it was to make improvements in the classroom. And finally, when they couldn't explain to us how calling principals managers was going to improve classroom conditions, they argued it was a necessary step to implementing the recommendations of the inclusion report. And now we have that report. So I'd like to ask the minister, can the minister point out for us precisely which inclusion recommendations required destroying our collegial teaching model and eliminating elected school boards?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'll actually point the members' attention to several pages in the report, pages 9, 11, 12, 16, 23, 43, and page 90. And I'll read one of those quotes. All of these are very similar. One obstacle to progress is the lack of clarity and consistency in how inclusive education is defined and implemented in Nova Scotia. For many years, the policies, procedures, terminology for inclusive education have been interpreted and applied differently from school to school and region to region. The report is all, this is the inclusion report, Mr. Speaker. In addition, inconsistency in how the program planning process is implemented across the province creates confusion and frustration for students, parents, and teachers, Mr. Speaker. So this inclusion report has actually validated the concerns that we've had in our fractured system. And thank goodness we moved on those, Mr. Speaker, because we would not be in a place to execute on this report in September had we not.